What if the biggest threat to your success, creativity, and peace of mind is not lack of time, but the constant distraction stealing your attention every single day? You sit down to do important work, but within minutes your mind is pulled away by notifications, emails, social media, and endless open tabs. Hours disappear, yet you feel like you've accomplished almost nothing. This is not laziness. This is the modern crisis of attention, and it is quietly destroying your ability to do deep, meaningful work. Chapter 1. Why deep work feels so hard. Letting go of distraction is simple in theory, but incredibly difficult in practice. In this chapter, you will discover the hidden psychological and emotional reasons why your mind fights so hard to stay scattered. You will see why the struggle is normal and why understanding it is the first step to freedom. Stay with me. By the end of this chapter, you will finally understand why deep work has felt impossible and why it doesn't have to stay that way. The paradox is this: the very thing we need most, deep work, feels like the hardest thing we will ever do. We know logically that constant distraction hurts our progress, our peace, and our potential. We see successful people who seem to create with total focus, and we tell ourselves, "I could do that too, if only I could concentrate." Yet every time we sit down to do the one thing that matters, the phone lights up, a new tab opens, an email arrives, and another hour disappears into shallow activity. Why? Because deep work is not a logical decision. It is an emotional surrender, and our emotions have their own powerful reasons for staying distracted. In this chapter, we will gently pull back the curtain and look at the real reasons deep work feels so difficult. No judgment, only understanding. Because when you truly understand the why, the how becomes possible. Deep work feels hard because it triggers deep survival instincts buried inside your brain. Your mind interprets sustained, undistracted focus as vulnerability. Vulnerability to boredom. Vulnerability to the discomfort of hard thinking. Vulnerability to the possibility of failure or facing the truth about your own potential. So it fights back with every tool it has. Notifications, open tabs, the illusion of productivity, the dopamine hit of just one more thing, and the comforting busyness that makes you feel important. We stay distracted because we believe a quiet but powerful lie. If I just check one more message, answer one more email, or scroll one more feed, I'll finally be ready to focus. Or if I stay available to everyone, I won't miss anything important. Or even if I keep moving fast, I won't have to feel the weight of what I'm actually capable of. But the truth is this: some tasks are not meant to be done in fragments. Some work is not meant to be interrupted every 47 seconds. Some potential is not meant to be scattered forever. The struggle you feel is not a sign of weakness. It is not laziness. It is not lack of discipline. It is a sign that you are human and that your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do: protect you from discomfort, uncertainty, and the unknown. Let's look deeper. Your brain has two competing systems. One is the ancient survival system, the same system that once kept our ancestors alive by constantly scanning for threats, opportunities, and social signals. In the modern world, that system has been hijacked by pings, likes, emails, and endless information. It rewards you with dopamine every time you switch tasks. It makes shallow work feel urgent and deep work feel dangerous. At the same time, the newer part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of focus, planning, and creative insight, gets exhausted quickly when it has to fight against that ancient system. Every time you try to go deep, the survival system whispers, "This is hard. This is uncomfortable. What if you fail? What if you miss something?" Let's check the phone instead, it's safer. This is why you can feel motivated at 8 a.m., sit down with the best intentions, and by 8:12 a.m., You're already 3 tabs deep in something completely unrelated. It is not a willpower problem. It is a biological and emotional survival response. Alex. Alex is 31 years old, a creative director living in New York. Every morning he opens his laptop with a clear goal: finish the major campaign concept that could take his career to the next level. He knows this one project could change everything. Within 10 minutes his phone buzzes, then Slack lights up. Then an email from a client who just needs a quick reply. By noon he has answered 62 messages, watched 3 short videos, replied to team updates, and accomplished almost nothing on the campaign that actually matters. At night he lies in bed exhausted yet empty, scrolling through other people's work, telling himself tomorrow will be different. Alex is not lazy. He is not undisciplined. He is protecting himself. His mind is using distraction as armor against the discomfort of sitting with hard, uncertain, high-stakes creative thinking. Armor against the fear that if he goes deep and still fails, the dream might truly die. Armor against the quiet voice inside that says, "What if you're not as good as you hope?" When Alex finally understood that the real battle was not against his phone, but against his own emotional survival instincts, something shifted. He stopped calling himself weak. He started seeing the struggle with compassion, and that compassion became the first crack in the wall that had kept him scattered for years. You may recognize yourself in Alex's story. Most of us do. The hidden truth is that deep work feels hard because it asks you to do the very thing your brain has been trained to avoid. Sit in uncertainty, tolerate discomfort, and face the possibility that you might not be as productive, as brilliant, or as in control as you want to believe. But here is the gentle, liberating part. Once you understand this mechanism, you stop fighting yourself. You stop the self-blame. You stop the endless cycle of, "I just need more discipline." Instead, you begin to work with your mind rather than against it. That is the beginning of mastery. Why understanding this changes everything when you see that your distraction is not a personal failure, but a perfectly normal human response. Shame dissolves. And where shame dissolves, space opens, space for curiosity, space for compassion, and space for the small, consistent choices that actually build deep work. This chapter is not here to make you feel bad about how scattered you've been. It is here to set you free from that story. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply human. And now you are beginning to understand the hidden forces that have been running the show. Take a slow, deep breath with me right now. Inhale, hold for 3 seconds, exhale. Feel your shoulders drop just a little. That small release you just felt. That is the first taste of what is possible when you stop fighting your mind and start understanding it. In the next chapters, we will move from this understanding into the exact attachments that keep you scattered, the overwhelm that makes deep work feel like dying, and the practical tools that turn insight into daily freedom. But for now, let this truth settle in your heart. The reason deep work feels so hard is not because you lack something. It is because you are finally brave enough to want something that matters. And that desire, dear seeker, is the beginning of everything. Chapter 2. The distractions we carry. Identifying what you're really holding on to. Deep work feels impossible because we are not just fighting external noise. We are fighting deep emotional attachments too. Distraction itself. In this chapter, you will discover the hidden attachments that keep you scattered. Attachments to busyness, to approval, to the illusion of control, to other people's expectations, and to the story of who you think you should be. You will learn to see exactly what you are holding on to and why it feels so painful to release it. By the end, you will have clarity on what needs to be released first. Stay with me. Understanding your distractions is the key that unlocks true focus. The real reason deep work feels so hard is not because you are weak or broken. It is because you are attached. We don't lose focus because of the world outside us. We lose focus because of the emotional meaning we have given to distraction. That meaning becomes part of our identity, our safety, our hope for validation. When we try to release it, the mind screams, "If I focus deeply, what if I fail? What if I miss out? What will protect me from discomfort?" This chapter is about seeing those attachments clearly, without judgment. Because the moment you see what you are truly holding on to, the grip begins to loosen naturally. Most people think they are distracted by their phone, their email, or the endless meetings. But the real attachment is deeper. It is the attachment to the identity you built around being busy. I am the one who is always available. The hope that constant connection will bring approval if I respond fast. They will like me. The fear that without distraction, you will have to face the discomfort of real work. These attachments create an invisible chain. Every time you try to go deep, the chain pulls you back. The mind says, "If I focus, I will lose part of my safety net." This is why deep work feels like dying, because in a way, a small part of the old scattered identity must die for the focused self to be born. Meet Sophia. Sophia is 37 years old, a project manager living in Tokyo. For years she told herself she was too busy to do the deep strategic thinking her role actually required. She answered every message instantly, jumped into every Slack thread, and felt productive because she was always responding. Yet her big initiatives, the ones that could have earned her a promotion and real impact, never moved forward. She wasn't attached to her phone. She was attached to the version of herself that felt worthy only when she was available and helpful to everyone. She was attached to the story, "I am the reliable one who never lets anyone down." When she finally named the real attachment, the fear that deep focus would expose her to criticism, failure, or the possibility that she wasn't as indispensable as she believed, the grip began to loosen. She didn't have to force herself to focus harder. She simply stopped needing the old story to define her worth. You may see yourself in Sophia's story. Most of us do. The 5 major distractions we carry: 1. Attachment to busyness. We romanticize being always on. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. Deep down, we believe that if we slow down and focus deeply, we will look lazy or unproductive to others and to ourselves. Busyness feels like proof that we matter. 2. Attachment to approval. Every notification is a tiny hit of validation. We check our phones not because the message is urgent, but because we fear missing the feeling of being needed, liked, or important. Shallow work becomes our way of staying connected to that approval. 3. Attachment to control. We believe we must monitor everything or life will fall apart. Deep work requires us to let go of constant monitoring and trust that the world will still turn. That surrender feels dangerous to the part of us that wants to stay in control. 4. Attachment to people's expectations. We stay reactive so we won't disappoint anyone. Saying "I'm in deep work right now" feels selfish, so we keep the door open, the notifications on, and our attention fragmented, all to protect the image of being approachable and reliable. 5. Attachment to discomfort avoidance. Deep work forces us to sit with uncertainty, boredom, and the possibility of failure. Shallow work is comfortable. It gives us the illusion of progress without the risk of real vulnerability. We hold on to distraction because it protects us from feeling the full weight of our own potential. The psychology behind each of these attachments is rooted in something ancient and powerful. Attachment to busyness is fueled by loss aversion, the brain's tendency to fear loss more than it values gain. We fear losing the identity of the hard worker more than we value the gains of deep focus. Attachment to approval is driven by the same dopamine loops that once kept our ancestors connected to the tribe for survival. Today, the tribe is online, and every like or reply gives us a tiny hit of belonging. Attachment to control comes from the illusion that constant vigilance equals safety. Yet neuroscience shows that true cognitive control only emerges when we stop multitasking and allow the prefrontal cortex to work without interference. Attachment to people's expectations is tied to identity fusion, when our sense of self becomes fused with how others see us. Letting go of reactivity feels like letting go of part of who we are. Attachment to discomfort avoidance is the most primal. The brain treats the effort of deep work the same way it treats physical pain. It activates the same avoidance circuits that once kept us from danger. How to identify your own attachments here is a gentle practice you can do right now. Take a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Ask yourself these questions slowly, with honesty and kindness. When I try to sit down for deep work, what is the very first thing my mind wants to do instead? What emotion comes up when I imagine turning off notifications for 2 hours? Fear, guilt, anxiety, relief. What story do I tell myself about why I can't focus right now? I'm too busy. I need to stay available. I work better under pressure. Which of the 5 attachments above feels most alive in me right now? Write the answers without editing. Naming the attachment is the first act of freedom. Why naming the attachment weakens its power? Neuroscience gives us beautiful proof of this. When we label an emotion or attachment, simply saying to ourselves, "This is my attachment to approval," or "This is my fear of looking unproductive," activity in the amygdala, the fear center, decreases and the prefrontal cortex regains control. The attachment loses its invisible grip the moment it is seen clearly. You don't have to force anything yet. You only have to see. The gentle art of releasing one distraction at a time. You do not have to eliminate every distraction at once. That would only create more resistance. Start with the smallest, clearest attachment you identified. Choose one. Name it. Observe it without judgment for the next few days. Every time it appears, simply say to yourself, "I see you. You are my attachment to busyness." That gentle acknowledgement is enough for today. In the next chapters, we will move from seeing these attachments to facing the overwhelm and fear they create, and then to the practical tools that turn understanding into lasting focus. But for now, let this truth settle in your heart. The distractions you carry are not your enemy. They are old protectors that once served you. Now you are simply ready to thank them and choose something new. Take a slow, deep breath with me again. Inhale, exhale. Feel how even this small awareness creates a little more space inside you. That space is where deep work begins to grow. Chapter 3. The overwhelm and fear of the unknown. Why deep work feels like dying. Deep work doesn't just feel difficult. It often feels overwhelming, even terrifying. In this chapter, you will discover the deep overwhelm and primal fear of the unknown that makes sustained focus feel like a kind of death. You will learn why your brain and heart treat deep work as a threat to survival, and how to move through that fear without being consumed by it. By the end, you will understand that the resistance you feel is not a sign you are doing it wrong. It is the natural price of mastery. Stay with me. Facing this overwhelm is the doorway to the focus you have been seeking. Here is the paradox at the heart of deep work. The very act that will set you free feels, in the moment, like you are losing everything. Your mind doesn't experience deep focus as peaceful or productive. It experiences it as exposure. Exposure to boredom, exposure to uncertainty, exposure to the possibility of failure, exposure to the quiet truth of what you are truly capable of and what you have been avoiding. This is why so many people sit down to do deep work, feel a sudden wave of resistance, and pull back. Not because they are lazy, not because they lack discipline, but because the human brain is wired to fear the unknown discomfort of deep focus, more than it fears the familiar pain of constant distraction. In this chapter, we are going to look directly at that overwhelm and that fear, not to make you feel worse, but to finally make them lose their power over you. When you understand what is really happening inside you when you try to go deep, the process becomes kinder, clearer, and ultimately possible. Explaining the problem, deep work triggers one of the most primal fears we have as human beings, the fear of the void. When you commit to deep work, you create an empty space where distraction once lived. Your brain hates empty space. It interprets that emptiness as danger. So it floods you with overwhelm, anxiety, panic, and an overwhelming urge to fill the void immediately, often by grabbing the very distractions you are trying to escape. This is why people stay in shallow mode for years. The discomfort of true focus feels worse than the pain of staying scattered. The mind says, "At least the distraction I know is familiar." The unknown depth of real focus is terrifying. This chapter is about making the unknown less terrifying by understanding it. Daniel is 44 years old, a writer and consultant living in California. He knew he needed deep work to finally finish the book that had been in his heart for years. He tried everything: focus apps, Pomodoro timers, accountability partners. But every single time he sat down to write, a wave of panic would hit him. His mind would race with thoughts like, "I don't know where to start. What if it's not good enough? Or maybe I should just check my email first." He preferred the familiar comfort of answering messages and feeling busy. He wasn't weak. He was protecting himself from the unknown outcome of deep, uninterrupted thinking. The fear of the void, the fear of who he would be if he actually faced the work and still fell short, was so intense that he chose the known pain of distraction. When Daniel finally understood that the overwhelm was not laziness, but a deep fear of the unknown future without his old scattered identity, he was able to begin the real work of reclaiming his focus. He didn't have to force brilliance. He simply stopped using distraction as a way to avoid the empty space where real creation could happen. The overwhelm and fear of the unknown deep work is not just a decision. It is a profound emotional and neurological process that mirrors the stages of grief, because something inside you truly is dying, the old version of yourself that hid behind constant motion. The 5 stages of overwhelm in deep work. 1. Denial. I'll just check one more thing first, then I'll focus. The mind refuses to accept that deep work requires letting go of the safety of distraction. 2. Anger. Why is this so hard? I should be better at this by now. Anger is the mind's way of fighting against the discomfort of focus. 3. Bargaining. If I do 15 minutes of shallow work first, then I'll go deep. The mind tries to negotiate with reality and delay the void. 4. Overwhelm. The heavy resistance, anxiety, or blankness that makes you want to quit. This is the stage where most people get stuck, mistaking the discomfort for a permanent truth. 5. Acceptance. This discomfort is normal. I can sit with it. This is where freedom and focus begin. Each stage has its own biochemistry. Denial and bargaining give you little hits of hope. Anger floods you with adrenaline. Overwhelm lowers your ability to think clearly. Acceptance slowly restores balance and opens the door to flow. The fear of the void. When you commit to deep work, you create an empty space. The brain treats this emptiness as a threat to survival. This is why people often fill the void immediately with new distractions, new tabs, new messages, anything to avoid feeling the nothingness where true focus lives. Neuroscience of the fear response fMRI studies show that the amygdala lights up intensely during attempts at deep focus. The same brain areas that activate during physical danger also activate when you try to sit in undistracted work. Your body literally feels like it is in danger when you choose depth over distraction. Attachment theory and deep work. People with anxious or avoidant attachment styles often find deep work especially difficult. The fear of being not enough, or the fear of facing uncomfortable truths makes the void feel unbearable. Deep work asks you to be alone with your own mind, and for many of us, that is the scariest place of all. Cultural and societal influences. Modern society glorifies constant busyness. Never slow down, stay connected, hustle harder. We are rarely taught the wisdom of graceful depth. We are praised for reactivity, not for presence. This makes the choice to go deep feel rebellious, even dangerous. The beautiful truth on the other side: when you finally move through the overwhelm and fear, something extraordinary happens. You discover that the void is not empty. It is full of possibility. It is the space where your best ideas, clearest thinking, and deepest creativity can finally emerge. Take a slow, deep breath with me right now. Inhale, hold for 3 seconds. Exhale. Feel your shoulders drop just a little. That small release you just felt, that is the beginning of moving through the fear instead of being ruled by it. You are not overwhelmed because you are weak. You are overwhelmed because you are finally brave enough to want something that matters. In the next chapter, we will move from understanding this fear to the practical tools that make deep work possible, step by gentle step. But for now, let this truth settle in your heart. The fear you feel is not the end of your focus. It is the doorway to it. Chapter 4. The practical tools. How to actually build deep work step by step. You now understand why deep work feels so hard, why the distractions carry such emotional weight, and why the overwhelm and fear of the unknown can feel like a kind of death. In this chapter, you will move from understanding to action. You will learn the exact, practical, step-by-step tools that make deep work possible in real life, not as a one-time heroic effort, but as a gentle daily practice. You will discover how to build focus safely, without forcing or burning out, so that peace and clarity can actually take root. Stay with me. This is where the mastery of deep work becomes something you can do. Understanding the problem is important, but understanding alone will not give you focus. The moment you stop analyzing why you are distracted and start practicing how to go deep, everything changes. Deep work is not a feeling you wait for. It is a skill you practice. Just like learning to play an instrument or ride a bike, it feels awkward at first, then uncomfortable, and finally natural. This chapter is your hands-on guide. It gives you the exact tools, the daily practices, and the step-by-step process that thousands of people have used to move from scattered to focused. You do not need to wait until you feel ready. You only need to begin. Explaining the problem: most people stay scattered because they believe deep work must happen all at once or not at all. They wait for a perfect moment of motivation, clarity, or willpower that never arrives. They read books, watch videos, and still feel stuck. The truth is this: deep work is not one big dramatic act. It is 1,000 small, gentle choices made day after day. Without practical tools, the intention to focus remains just a wish. With practical tools, it becomes a repeatable skill you can use for the rest of your life. Meet Laura. Laura is 29 years old, an entrepreneur living in Addis Ababa. She had been trying to write her business plan for 2 full years. She understood the psychology of distraction. She knew the attachments and the fear of the void. But she still couldn't stay focused long enough to finish even one section. Then she began using the step-by-step practices you will learn in this chapter, one small tool at a time. She started with a simple daily focus ritual. She added a surrender statement when the fear rose. She practiced protecting her environment instead of forcing her mind. Within 6 weeks, she had a complete business plan and felt a lightness and clarity she hadn't known in years. She didn't force herself to get focused. She simply practiced the tools until deep work became her new way of being. You may see yourself in Laura's story. Most of us do. The practical tools of deep work. Letting go of distraction is an art, and every art has tools. Here are the proven, practical tools that turn intention into lasting focus. Use them gently. One at a time is enough. Tool 1. The Daily Focus Ritual. 10 minutes every morning. Begin each day with a short 4-step sequence. 1. Sit quietly and name one deep task for the day. 2. Close your eyes and say, "Today I choose depth over distraction." 3. Set a visible timer for your first deep session. 4. Take 3 slow breaths and begin. This ritual trains your brain to associate the start of the day with focus instead of reactivity. Tool 2. The Deep Work Statement. Create one short, powerful sentence you repeat when distraction calls. I release this distraction to make space for what truly matters. Say it out loud or silently. It interrupts the automatic pull and reminds your mind of your deeper intention. Tool 3. The Environment Reset. Before any deep session, spend 60 seconds clearing your physical space. Close tabs, silence notifications, put your phone in another room. And place one object that symbolizes focus: a notebook, a candle, a simple stone. Your environment becomes a silent ally. Tool 4. The Identity Audit. Once a week, ask, which part of my old scattered identity am I still protecting? Write the answer. Then write the new identity you are stepping into. I am someone who protects my focus. This bridges understanding and action. Tool 5. The To-List Method. Draw 2 columns. Left, what I am losing by staying distracted. Right, what I am gaining by choosing deep work. Read both lists every morning. Let the right column grow more alive in your heart. Tool 6. The Discomfort Allowance Window. Give yourself permission to feel the discomfort of focus for just 15 minutes. Set a timer. Tell yourself, I only need to sit with this for 15 minutes. After that, I can stop if I want. Almost always, once you begin, the resistance fades. Tool 7. The Replacement Principle. Instead of just removing distractions, consciously add something positive into the space you create. A beautiful playlist with no lyrics, a cup of tea, or a short walk afterward as a reward. The brain learns that depth feels better than shallowness. Tool 8. The Focus Bridge. When you feel the urge to check something, pause and ask, will this move my deep task forward? If the answer is no, gently say, not now, and return to the work. This builds the muscle of choice. Tool 9. The Future Self Focus Letter. Once a month, write a short letter from your future self who has already mastered deep work. Read it when resistance appears. Let that wiser version speak to you with compassion and truth. Tool 10. The Weekly Deep Work Review. Every Sunday evening, spend 10 minutes reviewing. What deep work did I protect this week? What distracted me and why? What one small change will I make next week? Celebrate every win, no matter how small. Progress compounds. These 10 tools are not rules to follow perfectly. They are gentle invitations. Start with just 1 or 2 that feel easiest. Mastery is not about doing all 10 tomorrow. It is about doing 1 consistently today. Take a slow, deep breath with me right now. Inhale, hold for 3 seconds, exhale. Feel your shoulders drop just a little. That small release you just felt. That is the beginning of turning knowledge into practice. You are not scattered because you lack tools. You are simply 1 gentle practice away from the focus you deserve. In the next chapter, we will move from these tools to the power of environment. How to design a sanctuary that supports deep work instead of sabotaging it. But for now, let this truth settle in your heart. The practical tools are not here to force you. Chapter 5. The Power of Environment. Designing your focus sanctuary. You now understand why deep work feels so hard, why the distractions carry such emotional weight, why the overwhelm can feel like dying, and you have the practical tools in your hands. In this chapter, you will discover the power of environment as the ultimate act of deep work, not as restriction or punishment, but as the most powerful form of freedom and self-respect. You will learn how to design a physical, digital and mental sanctuary that supports focus instead of sabotaging it. By the end, you will see that your environment can become your silent ally, doing half the work for you. Stay with me. This chapter changes everything. Here is the deepest truth about deep work. You can have all the motivation and all the tools in the world, but if your environment is designed for distraction, your mind will always lose the battle. The moment you stop trying to force your mind to focus, and instead design the world around you to make focus the easiest choice, everything shifts. Your environment either protects your attention or steals it. Most people never realize they are living in a space engineered by others, by app designers, by open offices, by the habits of everyone around them. Deep work requires you to become the architect of your own sanctuary. This chapter is not about creating a perfect, Instagram-worthy workspace. It is about creating a gentle, honest space where your mind feels safe enough to go deep. You do not need a fancy office or expensive tools. You only need intention and a few small, deliberate changes. Explaining the problem, most people stay scattered not because they lack willpower, but because their environment is perfectly designed to keep them reactive. Notifications are one tap away. Tabs stay open. Phones sit within arm's reach. The desk is cluttered with reminders of unfinished tasks. Even the lighting, the noise, and the people around you pull your attention outward. The brain is lazy in the smartest possible way. It follows the path of least resistance. If your environment makes distraction easier than focus, your brain will always choose distraction. No amount of motivation or tools can overcome a badly designed environment for long. The truth is simple. Willpower is finite. Environment is constant. When you design your environment to support deep work, you stop relying on willpower and start relying on systems that work even when you are tired, stressed, or unmotivated. Meet Marcus. Marcus is 42 years old, a financial analyst living in Washington, D.C. For years, he tried to do deep analytical work in his living room, laptop open, phone beside him, television in the corner, family members walking in and out. He would start strong, but within 20 minutes he was checking messages, replying to his wife, or watching the news. He blamed himself for lacking discipline. Then he decided to design one small focus sanctuary in the corner of his bedroom. He moved the phone to another room, created a simple ritual of closing the door and lighting a candle, covered the window with a dark curtain to reduce visual noise, and placed only the documents he needed for that day on the desk. Nothing else. Within 3 weeks, his deep work sessions doubled in length and quality. He finished reports that had been dragging for months. The biggest surprise: he no longer felt like he was fighting himself. The environment was now fighting for him. Marcus didn't become more disciplined. He simply stopped living in an environment that was designed against him. You may see yourself in Marcus's story. Most of us do. The power of environment. Designing your focus sanctuary. Your environment has 3 layers. Master all 3 and deep work becomes your natural state. 1. Physical environment. Choose one dedicated space for deep work, even if it is just a corner of a room. Remove everything that does not serve the current deep task. Use visual cues. A specific notebook, a candle, a plant, or a simple object that signals this is deep work time. Control light and sound. Softer lighting and noise-canceling headphones or gentle instrumental music can dramatically lower cognitive load. 2. Digital environment. Create a deep work profile on your computer and phone. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Use website blockers for the duration of your session. Close every tab except the ones required for the task. Place your phone in another room or in a drawer with a timer lock if needed. Use full screen mode and minimalist writing or research apps. 3. Mental and social environment. O. Communicate your deep work blocks clearly to family or colleagues. I am in deep focus from 9 to 11. Please only interrupt if it is urgent. O. Protect the mental space before you begin. Do not check social media or news right before a deep session. O. Create a short arrival ritual that tells your mind the outside world is now on pause. Why environment design works so deeply. Neuroscience shows that our brains form strong context-dependent habits. When the same physical and digital cues are repeatedly paired with deep work, your brain begins to associate that specific environment with focus. The environment itself starts triggering the focus state automatically before you even try. This is called environmental cueing. It is the same reason athletes perform better in familiar stadiums and musicians play better in their practice room. You are simply using the brain's natural wiring for your benefit instead of against it. Practical steps to build your sanctuary today. Start small. Choose one deep work session tomorrow and redesign only that space for 10 minutes beforehand. Make it beautiful and calm. A sanctuary should feel safe, not sterile. Test and adjust. After 1 week, notice what helped and what still pulled you away, then refine. Keep it consistent. Use the same space and cues every time so the habit strengthens quickly. Take a slow, deep breath with me right now. Inhale, hold for 3 seconds. Exhale. Feel your shoulders drop just a little. That small release you just felt. That is the beginning of letting your environment support you instead of fighting you. You are not weak for struggling in a distracting environment. You are simply ready to become the architect of your own focus. In the next chapter, we will move from designing your sanctuary to the freedom of time blocking, how to trust your focus calendar, and protect your deep work time like the precious resource it is. But for now, let this truth settle in your heart. Your environment is not just the place where you work. It is the silent partner that either steals your focus or gives it back to you. Chapter 6. The Freedom of Time Blocking. Trusting your focus calendar, you now understand why deep work feels so hard, why the distractions carry emotional weight, why the overwhelm feels like dying. You have the practical tools, and you have begun designing your focus sanctuary. In this chapter, you will discover the beautiful freedom that comes when you finally stop reacting to the day and start protecting your focus with intention. You will learn how time blocking is not about rigid schedules or losing spontaneity, but the ultimate act of self-trust and freedom. By the end, you will know exactly how to build a focus calendar that works with your life instead of against it. Stay with me. This is where deep work stops being a daily battle and becomes your natural rhythm. Here is the paradox that changes everything. The more tightly you try to control every minute with busyness and reactivity, the more life slips through your fingers. The moment you stop gripping the day and start protecting specific blocks for deep work, time begins to support you in ways you could never force. Time blocking is not about becoming a slave to your calendar. It is the highest form of freedom. It is the realization that you do not have to carry the weight of constant availability on your shoulders. You only have to carry your own presence and your own next deep task. This chapter moves you from hoping focus will magically appear to deliberately creating the space where it must appear. You will learn how to trust your focus calendar the same way you trust a trusted friend, with calm confidence. Explaining the problem, most people who have done the earlier work of understanding distractions and designing their environment still struggle with one final hurdle. They let go of the old scattered habits, but they do not fully protect the new space they have created. They say, "I want to do deep work, but the day just gets away from me." They start the morning with good intentions, yet emails, messages, meetings, and quick things eat up the hours until evening arrives, and they feel exhausted yet empty. Without a clear calendar that guards deep work time, even the best tools and sanctuaries eventually lose the battle against the world's demands. The truth is, deep work does not happen in the leftover minutes of the day. It happens in the protected minutes you deliberately claim. Time blocking is the bridge between intention and reality. Meet Maya. Maya is 29 years old, a startup founder living in London. After learning about attachments, overwhelm, tools, and environment design, she had everything she needed, except a way to actually protect the time. Her days were still filled with back-to-back calls, urgent Slack messages, and "I'll do deep work later." Her big vision for the company kept slipping further away. Then she created her first simple focus calendar. 2 90-minute deep work blocks every morning, clearly marked and communicated to her team. She treated those blocks as non-negotiable appointments with her future self. She learned to say, "I'm in deep work until 11, I'll reply after." Within 1 month, she finished the product strategy that had been stalled for 6 months. New opportunities began flowing in because she finally had the clarity and energy that only deep work can create. She said, "I thought letting go of distractions was the hard part. Trusting my calendar was the part that set me free." You may see yourself in Maya's story. Most of us do. The freedom of time blocking. Trusting your focus calendar. Time blocking is the practice of deciding in advance when you will do deep work, and then protecting that time as fiercely as you would. Protect a meeting with your most important client, because it is. It is not about filling every hour. It is about creating sacred windows where distraction is not allowed to enter. How to build your focus calendar, simple and sustainable. 1. Choose your deep work blocks. Pick 1-3 blocks per day. 90 minutes is ideal for most people. Put them in your calendar as recurring events titled Deep Work, Do Not Disturb. 2. Protect the blocks ruthlessly during these hours. Phone in another room, notifications off, email closed, colleagues or family informed. This is your sanctuary time. 3. Use the 1 deep task rule before each block. Write down the single most important deep task. Do not allow yourself to switch tasks inside the block. 4. Schedule shallow work in batches. Group all emails, messages, calls, and admin into specific shallow work blocks, e.g., 11-12 and 4-5. This stops them from leaking into your deep time. 5. Build in buffer and recovery. Leave short buffers between blocks, and protect at least one open evening or afternoon for rest and creativity to emerge naturally. The neuroscience of why time blocking works. When you decide your deep work times in advance, you remove decision fatigue, one of the biggest energy drains on your brain. Instead of constantly asking, "Should I focus now or later?" your mind relaxes because the decision is already made. The prefrontal cortex can now focus on the work instead of negotiating with the day. Studies show that people who use time blocking report significantly higher levels of flow, lower anxiety, and greater overall life satisfaction because they stop living in a state of constant reactivity. The beautiful freedom on the other side. When you trust your focus calendar, something magical happens. You stop feeling guilty for saying no. You stop feeling behind. You begin to move through your days with quiet confidence, knowing that your most important work is already protected. You become someone who responds from clarity instead of urgency. You become someone who creates instead of reacts. You become someone who trusts their own time. Take a slow, deep breath with me right now. Inhale, hold for 3 seconds. Exhale. Feel your shoulders drop just a little. That small release you just felt, that is the beginning of trusting time instead of fighting it. You are not too busy to do deep work. You are simply one clear calendar away from the freedom you have been seeking. In the next chapter, we will move from protecting your time to the deeper work of emotional intelligence, taming the inner chaos that still tries to pull you out of focus, even when the calendar is perfect. But for now, let this truth settle in your heart. Time blocking is not about controlling life. It is about finally giving your deepest self the time it deserves. Chapter 7. Emotional Intelligence. Taming the inner chaos of distraction. You now understand why deep work feels so hard, why the distractions carry emotional weight, why the overwhelm feels like dying. You have the practical tools. You have designed your focus sanctuary, and you have begun trusting your focus calendar. In this chapter, you will discover that the biggest distractions are no longer outside you, they are inside you. You will learn how emotional intelligence becomes the final and most powerful key to deep work mastery. You will see how to tame the inner chaos of fear, anxiety, boredom, self-doubt, and restlessness, so that even when the world is quiet and your calendar is protected, your mind can finally stay deep. Stay with me. This is where deep work stops being a technique and becomes who you are. Here is the deepest truth about deep work. You can have the perfect environment and the perfect calendar, but if your emotions are still in chaos, your mind will still find a way to escape. The moment you stop trying to force your emotions to be quiet and instead learn to understand, name, and gently guide them, the inner battlefield falls silent. Emotional intelligence is not a soft skill in the world of focus. It is the master skill. It is the difference between someone who can sit down to do deep work and someone who actually stays there, not because the distractions are gone, but because the inner storm no longer pulls them away. This chapter is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about befriending them. Because when you become emotionally intelligent, distraction loses its hidden fuel. Explaining the problem even with all the outer systems in place, most people still get pulled out of deep work by invisible inner forces. The sudden wave of anxiety that says, "What if this isn't good enough?" The boredom that feels unbearable after 20 minutes. The quiet guilt that whispers, "You should be answering messages instead." Or the restlessness that makes sitting still feel impossible. These are not random. They are emotions that have been trained for years to treat deep focus as a threat. The mind uses them as an escape hatch. Without emotional intelligence, you keep fighting these feelings with willpower, and willpower always loses in the long run. True deep work mastery happens when you stop fighting your emotions and start leading them. When you can feel the fear rise and still choose to stay. When you can notice boredom without running from it. When you can meet self-doubt with compassion instead of believing it. This is emotional intelligence applied to focus, and it is the missing piece for almost everyone who has tried and failed before. Meet Alina. Alina is 34 years old, a researcher and mother living in Miami. She had built a beautiful focus sanctuary, blocked her calendar perfectly, and used every practical tool. Yet every time she sat down for deep work, within 30 minutes she would feel a heavy wave of anxiety or self-doubt. Her mind would start spiraling. Is this even the right direction? What if I'm wasting time? Maybe I should check on the kids or answer that one email. She would leave the session feeling defeated, even though nothing external had interrupted her. She wasn't lacking discipline. She was lacking emotional intelligence. Her inner world was still in chaos, and that chaos was louder than any notification. When Alina began the practices you will learn in this chapter, naming the emotions in real time, using self-compassion, and gently redirecting her inner state, everything changed. She went from 20-minute scattered sessions to 90-minute deep flow states. The work became easier, not because the emotions disappeared, but because she no longer feared them. You may see yourself in Alina's story. Most of us do. Emotional intelligence, taming the inner chaos of distraction. Emotional intelligence in deep work has 4 simple pillars. Master these and the inner storm loses its power. 1. Self-awareness. Naming the emotion in real time. The moment you feel the pull to escape, pause and name it silently. This is anxiety. This is boredom. This is self-doubt. Naming reduces the emotional intensity instantly. Neuroscience calls this effect labeling. The feeling no longer controls you, you observe it. 2. Self-compassion, speaking to yourself with kindness instead of criticizing yourself for feeling distracted. I'm so weak. Speak to yourself like a wise friend. It's okay that this feels hard right now. I'm learning I'm safe to stay. Self-compassion lowers cortisol and makes it easier to return to the task. 3. Emotional regulation. The 90-second rule: every emotion has a biochemical wave that lasts about 90 seconds. When the wave rises, breathe slowly and wait. Do not act on the urge to check your phone or switch tasks. After 90 seconds, the intensity naturally drops and you can choose to stay in deep work. 4. Emotional redirect. Turning the energy toward the task once the emotion is named and calmed. Gently ask, what is the very next small step I can take in this deep work? Turn the emotional energy into forward motion instead of escape. The neuroscience behind emotional mastery: when emotions run unchecked, the amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for deep focus. But when you practice emotional intelligence, the prefrontal cortex regains control. The same brain circuits that once fueled distraction now support sustained attention. Over time, deep work stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like a safe, familiar home. Practical daily practices for inner calm during every deep work block. Keep a small note nearby. When an emotion arises, write one word for it: anxiety, boredom, doubt. Use the phrase, I see you, I'm here. We can stay. End each session with 30 seconds of gratitude for whatever you accomplished, even if it felt difficult. Take a slow, deep breath with me right now. Inhale, hold for 3 seconds. Exhale. Feel your shoulders drop just a little. That small release you just felt, that is the beginning of taming the inner chaos instead of being ruled by it. You are not distracted because you are emotionally weak. You are simply ready to become emotionally wise. In the next chapter, we will move from taming the inner chaos to the beautiful transformation that happens when you truly master deep work, the new, focused identity you become. But for now, let this truth settle in your heart. The greatest distractions were never outside you. They were the emotions you hadn't yet learned to lead. Chapter 8. Radical acceptance in pain, loss, and life's greatest challenges. You have now explored the foundations of radical acceptance, why we resist reality, emotional freedom, letting go of the past, relationships and boundaries, self-acceptance, and how acceptance serves as an antidote to anxiety and fear. In this chapter, you will discover how radical acceptance becomes a powerful lifeline during life's greatest challenges: physical pain, profound loss, grief, failure, illness, and moments that feel unbearable. You will learn why fighting pain only increases suffering, and how meeting it with radical acceptance can transform your relationship to hardship. By the end, you will see that acceptance does not remove pain, but it can free you from the extra layer of suffering we add when we resist what is. Stay with me. This chapter offers deep compassion and practical wisdom for the hardest parts of being human. Life will inevitably bring pain, loss, and challenges that feel too heavy to bear. In those moments, our instinctive response is resistance, anger at life. Why me? Bargaining or emotional shutdown. This resistance, while completely understandable, often turns unavoidable pain into prolonged, unnecessary suffering. Radical acceptance offers a different path. It does not ask you to like the pain or pretend it doesn't hurt. It simply invites you to stop fighting reality and meet what is with honesty, presence, and kindness. This chapter explores how radical acceptance can hold us through life's darkest and most difficult moments, not by eliminating the pain, but by changing our relationship to it, so we can move through it with greater grace and less additional suffering. When life brings deep pain, whether it's the loss of a loved one, chronic illness, financial ruin, betrayal, or failure, most people enter a state of fierce internal resistance. We rage against the unfairness, replay what-if scenarios, or numb ourselves to avoid feeling the full weight. This resistance adds a second layer of suffering on top of the original pain. The suffering of "this should not be happening to me." The result is prolonged grief, chronic resentment, emotional exhaustion, and sometimes even physical illness caused by the constant inner war. Radical acceptance does not bypass the pain. It allows us to feel it fully while removing the extra layer of resistance. In doing so, it creates space for healing, meaning, and eventual peace even in the midst of hardship. Marcus, 48 years old, lost his wife to cancer after a long and painful battle. For years afterward, he was consumed by resistance, anger at life, guilt over things he wished he had done differently, and a constant inner cry of "this shouldn't have happened." When he began practicing radical acceptance toward this profound loss, the shift was gradual but powerful. He stopped fighting the reality of her death and started allowing himself to feel the grief fully, without the added war against what had happened. The pain was still there, but the constant inner struggle eased. He began to find moments of peace and even gratitude for the love they shared. Marcus did not get over the loss. He learned to carry it with acceptance, and that made the burden significantly lighter. Radical acceptance in pain, loss, and life's greatest challenges the nature of pain versus suffering, the crucial distinction between the pain life brings and the suffering we add through resistance. Radical acceptance in grief and loss, how to meet profound loss with honesty and kindness, without bypassing the mourning process. Radical acceptance in physical pain and chronic illness, using acceptance to reduce the secondary suffering caused by fighting the body's reality. Radical acceptance after failure, betrayal, or disappointment, letting go of the story "this should not have happened," and meeting reality with compassion. The process of accepting what feels unacceptable, step-by-step guidance for working with the most difficult life events. Advanced practices for hard times, the "this is what is." Grounding practice, radical acceptance in the body during intense pain, the "I can hold this." Meditation, writing the letter of radical acceptance to life, common challenges when accepting pain and loss, fear. That acceptance means forgetting or betraying the loss, waves of intense emotion that feel overwhelming, the temptation to return to resistance for a sense of control, the long-term gifts of acceptance in hardship, greater emotional resilience, deeper wisdom, capacity for joy alongside sorrow, and a profound sense of inner peace that can coexist with pain. Chapter 9. Real stories of transformation through deep work. You have now explored the attention crisis, the science of deep work, the enemies of focus, building a deep work routine, rituals and environments, overcoming distraction, and sustaining long-term focus. In this final chapter, you will meet real people who have transformed their lives through mastery of deep work. You will hear their struggles, their turning points, and the remarkable results they achieved when they reclaimed their focus in a distracted world. By the end, you will see that deep work is not just a productivity hack. It is a life-changing practice that can reshape careers, creativity, and personal fulfillment. Stay with me. These real stories will inspire you to begin your own deep work journey. Theories and strategies are powerful, but real transformation comes alive through stories. In this final chapter, we move from principles to people. You will meet individuals from different walks of life who once felt overwhelmed by distraction, shallow work, and scattered attention, just like so many of us. Through deliberate practice of deep work, they reclaimed their focus, produced their best work, and created lives of greater meaning and satisfaction. Their journeys prove that deep work is not reserved for geniuses or monks. It is accessible to anyone willing to protect their attention. These stories are not fairy tales. They are real, relatable, and deeply inspiring. They show what is possible when you choose to think deeply instead of reacting shallowly. Before discovering deep work, most people feel trapped in a cycle of busyness without progress. They work long hours but accomplish little of real value. They feel creatively blocked, mentally exhausted, and secretly disappointed in themselves. The modern world makes this feel normal, but it is not normal. It is a tragedy of lost potential. The stories in this chapter show the dramatic difference between a life dominated by distraction and one built on deep work. They prove that change is possible and that the rewards are far greater than most people imagine. Sarah, a 34-year-old novelist. Sarah used to dream of writing books that mattered. Instead, she spent her days answering emails, scrolling social media, and jumping between shallow tasks. She wrote in fragments, constantly distracted, and felt increasingly frustrated with her lack of progress. After learning the principles of deep work, she created a strict 4-hour morning deep work block with no internet access. Within 6 months, she completed the novel she had been struggling with for 3 years. The book became a bestseller, and more importantly, Sarah felt alive again, connected to her creativity and purpose. Her story is just the beginning. Real stories of transformation through Deep Work Story 1. The executive who reclaimed his mind, how a burned-out CEO used deep work to regain strategic thinking and transform his company's direction. Story 2. The student who went from average to top of the Class A university student who replaced multitasking with deep work blocks and dramatically improved academic performance and confidence. Story 3. The artist who rediscovered creative flow, a painter who overcame years of creative block by protecting daily deep work sessions in her studio. Story 4. The freelancer who doubled income while working less, how a graphic designer used deep work to produce higher quality work faster and attract better clients. Story 5. The parent who found balance and presence, a working parent who used deep work principles to be more focused at work and more present with family. Story 6. The researcher who made a breakthrough discovery, a scientist who credited deep work for the focused thinking that led to a major scientific contribution. Common patterns across all stories. What these transformations reveal about the universal principles of deep work success. Lessons and actionable takeaways, specific insights you can apply immediately from each story. Your own deep work transformation, guided reflection on how these stories relate to your life, and what your first deep work commitment will be. Deep work is not about working harder, it is about working deeper. The people in these stories are not superhuman. They simply decided to protect their attention and invest it in what matters most. You can do the same.